welcome back to Ascent Trading, and today we're going to be talking about my 2026 stock picks. Now, these are all stocks that I am heavily invested in and hoping for great returns in the year of 2026. First up, we're going to do a quick overview of the first selection of stocks that I have, and the first selection is Finite Resources. Now, early into 2026, we have already seen a great spurt into gold and silver as the finite metals that are needed for data centers, any sort of CPU, power computing, and all that. But what's really important to take away here is that you have to know that gold, silver, and we'll talk about oil in a bit, they're all finite resources that have a finite amount on the planet, right? So we can only mine so much, we can only excavate so much, we can only have so much silver and gold and even copper if you want to get serious about all the metals. And now what you're seeing is the geopolitical aspect kind of come into the metals trade. China, early in the year, stockpiled silver. That caused price to go up. It's a simple supply and demand type of relationship there. What's important is that gold and silver, because they're both in the same sector, both move relatively the same. What you'll notice is that most of the index, while moving down, the metals move up. These are known as risk-on aspects, or risk-on assets. And what those do is they provide Wall Street investors with a little bit of a safety net when taking big trades. And, I don't know if that's the case here, but what I do know is that a lot of the metals we're seeing move are definitely heavily manipulated by banks and investments, right? Governments are buying in, banks are buying in. We see this giant short on gold and silver right here, and that's from J.P. Morgan. J.P. Morgan shorted the hell out of silver to screw over the Chinese investors that were stockpiling it, and well, it worked. What's terrible about that is that you're seeing such a heavily manipulated market, and I know on the prop firms they're getting rid of the gold and silver futures simply because of how manipulated the metals are by the banks. And that's a huge problem because now we're having a geopolitical aspect come into our economy, and that's never a good mix. What is positive about this is that we as retail traders can take advantage of this, right? We can use our trend analysis, we can use our key levels, and we can use our basic understandings of the market to sort of find a move to take here. And I'm not going to lie, silver was definitely a big short watch for me early in the year. I was always waiting for the huge move to topple, and I will say that I missed it, but on the way up I did make a good substantial amount of 5 figures. So with gold and silver, we're seeing a manipulation in the market because manufacturing is using up so much of the resource, and that's important to take forward because again, it's finite. It's not going to be there forever. The less of this, the more of this we use, the less of it we have, the less supply that we have, and the more demand we have, the higher the price will go. And I've started recording for this channel and TikTok and Instagram and all that, and what I've realized is that my PC is a pile of dog doo-doo. So recently I've been trying to upgrade and build a new PC, and let me tell you something, it is expensive as hell. Now, I don't really know what goes into to making computing components, but I do know that there's gold, copper, silver, platinum, all of the precious metals that we're talking about here in each of those computing processors. Now, where are we seeing a bunch of those computing components go? Data centers. So when we get into data centers, the precious metal trade is hand in hand with the data center trade. It's constantly a 1-to-1 ratio. As the more data centers open up, the more computing components are needed, the less materials that we have to make those computing components. And it all ties back into the finite resource category. So I'm heavily invested in silver and gold, especially on these big drops where I actually bought shares. I'm no longer taking options or futures on it. I never do futures, obviously, but I'm no longer taking options on it. I'm in this for the long haul now. Next up, we'll talk about oil. And what we're showing on screen here is the XLE, which is the energy sector. But Oil falls under this category, and the reason why we're so heavily invested into oil is not only because of the geopolitical standpoint, but back to the point of it's a finite resource, and we're running out of it a lot quicker than we think. So let's talk about the geopolitical aspect. Now, you can see here, I have December 31st marked on the chart here with the gray line, with the vertical gray line. And what do we see from the energy sector? It's been a straight upward spiral since the first of the year. Now, that's great because Trump is very pro renewable energy. He's pro, let's get some oil, let's get our resources intact before we venture out into doing any business or anything like that, which is fine. That's great. I'm invested heavily into the energy, not only oil, but solar and just nuclear energy as well, because that's been a huge geopolitical standpoint. We'll get into some stocks later that cover that. But what's important to realize here is that on top of the geopolitical aspects, we have the same problem that we have with the metals. We use too much oil. We use more than we can mine and, what's the word I'm looking for? We can mine and refine. We can mine and refine, right? And that's really important because everything that you use on a daily basis runs on oil. Rather it's driving to work, using electricity burns oil, I'm pretty sure. No, I'm not pretty sure. I know that. Oil is used in everything, and we constantly need it, and it's going to run out at some point. The dinosaurs weren't, around forever. But let's see if we can make some money off of that, right? And I'm going to throw out some stocks here. Valverol, Halliburton, I want to say Chevron, but I don't know because they're a little iffy with their policies and how they produce oil. But on the entire flip side of that, if you just want to invest in the energy sector itself, go for it, because you're going to be making money anyway. What's important here, and I never fucking turn off my ringer when I'm recording. I never do that. God, it happened all the time when I was in the course too. Anyways, what's important here is that even with all the geopolitical stuff, the U.S. is going to accumulate as much oil as possible in this next year. And what that means for other country or other companies that refine oil and drill oil and all that is that they're going to see a huge surge in prices and buying and selling activity because the demand's going to go up, so the supply has to increase. And what's important there, and the evidence with it, is Trump targeted Venezuela for the oil. That's fantastic. That's great. Most of it went to Israel. Who gives a shit? Now he's going to target Cuba and Iran for the same thing. So oil at some point is going to go up again. That's fine. That's a standpoint of life. Where it really gets interesting, though, is the fact that I had this fucking written down. Son of a bitch. Son of a bitch. Fuck. Oil. Oh. What's really important here is that Trump changed the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. Now, sure, it could have been a power move, screw Biden for putting the sanctions on the Gulf for not drilling or anything, but at the same time, I think it was a very strategic standpoint because changing the name takes away the sanction of drilling in it, so now oil companies are allowed to drill in the Gulf. That will create more oil inflow, which will generate more profits, which will make the stock go higher, which will make us money if we're invested. So my top stock picks for oil, definitely Chevron, definitely Halliburton, and definitely just the energy sector in its whole. The first equity that we're going to look at is AppLovin Corp. And what's great about this stock is it's down 30% since January 1st, so it's automatically a good buy. Today was their earnings report, so I've yet to look at the guidance and outlooks and the way that they beat or, didn't beat their earnings. But I'm very curious on when to get in this stock with shares and hold long term because if we can look at it right now. The overnight session is not looking too good. The conference call will really give us the overlook that we're looking for. But what's important to take away here is that this stock has had great relative strength in the AI sector. Even back in April when Trump initiated the tariffs, it didn't really have that big of a significant drop. Sure, it lost a lot of value, but it was mildly tame compared to some other AI names. So I like this stock a lot, and I'm really looking for it to get into gear, and then that way I can jump in with some shares and hopefully get some profits. The next stock we're going to look at as well is Broadcom. Now, everyone loves this stock. This was Nancy Pelosi's favorite. This is a great long-term investment stock. It's been around for a little bit. It's definitely not one that you see in the news a lot, but it definitely moves well as well. It definitely moves well. What we noticed here on the chart is it's been stuck in basically a few months of balance, and that's okay because it's basically pinned at the all-time high, which we like as traders. But what I really like about this stock is definitely the good strength within the AI trade and the long-term growth that can accumulate owning this stock. I own it from, I believe, the tariff lows, if not a little bit above, and I have been rewarded on taking my shares, and I've definitely been taking profits throughout this entire run. What is nice about this stock is that I've been able to sell and buy shares here and there, and I'm definitely waiting for a bigger move up until this all-time high to sell some more shares. But I'm definitely still heavily investing into this. The third equity that we're going to talk about is Reddit. And I know this is kind of an outlier, not a lot of people talk about this stock. It doesn't really get a lot of volume or anything like that. But what's really important to take away here is that it has had great relative strength moving forward without the 30% drop off with January, obviously. Now, this is fine, the 30% drop off, because it's a good buy for us retail traders. As I said, I'm looking for shares to buy in this, but what really entices me to buy it is the monthly chart, because what we see on the monthly chart is we see a consistent uptrend. We see lower lows, and higher highs. Now, when all of these form, it's really good. So what I'm really looking for is maybe we get a tad bit below 137, and if we could make some sort of reversal pattern off of that and start getting a daily uptrend going, I would be very enticed to take shares on this. I'm looking at it as the same way I'm looking at AppLovin, and I'm very ready to get into this for this year. The fourth equity that we'll talk about is AST. Now, what I like about this stock is that I have shares in it. I've taken a position on this, and what I'll tell you about this position is basically we built out some sort of bull flag on the daily chart, and then we got some sort of higher low above 50.50, which was the previous all-time high from back here. And as soon as we had that higher low form, I took shares, and I've been awarded so far. Now, what's great about this stock is it has room to run, and as I said, it's a great diversity play because it's all infrastructure. Now, what's great is that data centers follow under the infrastructure title. So the more data centers that we construct, the more infrastructure that we build, the more obviously energy that we use and what we'll have to pay for and all that. But this centralizes on data center building, and that's what I like about it, because data centers are a thing of the future, and they're definitely coming around the corner in basically anywhere they can put them. This has insane potential to go at least to triple digits. So I'm going to keep adding shares on every drop, and we'll see if I get awarded. The fifth and my most favorite stock we'll talk about today is Bloom Energy. Now, we talked about the XLE earlier in the video, and we talked about oil and energy and how it all accumulates in data centers and how data centers are going to need so much energy and blah, 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 blah. You can see how passionate I am about this stock. This is still a great buy, too. That's the best part. We're trapped in kind of a daily balance range up here, and I've just been stacking shares, which is fantastic. So I have Bloom Energy down here at this double bottom back in the middle of December. And what I gotta say is that I absolutely love this stock because it has such a parabolic rip coming. Energy is definitely a thing of the future. We're going to need it all the time. And Bloom Energy is renewable energy. And what did I say earlier? Trump loves renewable energy. If this were to get a government stake, I wouldn't be surprised. We're seeing great support from the previous all-time high back here. And now we're going to get some lift. So I just keep buying. And today's candle, I bought more because look at that. That's a great hammer candle. Tomorrow, we could probably make an all-time high break if we're lucky. I'll be adding shares and selling throughout this entire move, and this is a long-term hold for me, obviously. Now, if you came into this list thinking there was going to be no Mag 7 names, you'd be wrong, okay? You'd be insanely wrong. Palantir, our 7th stock here, we all know why this is a great deal. We don't have to say anything. It's security. It's going to be watching us our entire lives now. This stock is never going to go down simply because how much it means to the US government. It's disgusting to invest in, but unfortunately, that's what we have to do to be profitable in this goddamn market. So, Palantir's been a buy for me forever. I keep buying on every drop. Obviously, this earnings drop has been a little more hurtful for my portfolio, but I just keep averaging down, keep buying more, and eventually I'll get paid. Palantir is one of those stocks that, really wasn't profitable for the first few months, had a ton of stagflation come into it, and now we're kind of seeing a little more relief. And if we go to a weekly chart, we can see that we're barely touching the iceberg of the previous all-time high back here. So, could this go more? Could this go down to 125? Absolutely. Would I buy more then? I would probably buy triple the amount I bought, 2 days ago. It's all relevant, and Palantir is just one of those stocks that's just going to keep going up simply because of how much the government needs it. I guess we'll just do all the Mag 7 names while we're on it. Number 8, NVIDIA. Obviously, this is the best AI trader in the world. It's got the biggest market cap in the market. It's one of those stocks that everybody owns and everybody talks about. So the reason we own this is because obviously it's got a huge upside potential. It's the biggest thing in the market. Mr. Jensen just keeps releasing better and better products, so people keep buying. The amount of energy that this place consumes, the amount of materials that this place consumes, all are relevant with the stocks that move. CoreWeave, you could also pick over NVIDIA as well. It's a little bit cheaper, and it basically moves the same. CoreWeave is just the data center attached to the AI of NVIDIA, so they work hand in hand. What's great about those two stocks is that obviously they have had great relevance throughout the trades. They've been talked about constantly. They had great gains in 2025. They're going to have great gains in 2026. That's simply how it works. Excuse the intermission or any sort of slurring of words. I just got back from my golf league and I had a few beers, so bear with me for the rest of this video. The second to last stock we're going to talk about is IREN. Now, IREN is going to be great this year because of the data center trade that we've been talking about all this video. What's great about this is that IREN offers a renewable energy source for these data centers, and that is crazy for what we've been talking about throughout this entire video with the energy sector and how data centers are going to influence most of our trades this year. The more infrastructure we see built around data centers, the more power is needed, and the more IREN becomes an asset more than a liability. So I've been putting my money into the stock for a while, and obviously I think I'm about break even on it right about now. But I keep dumping more money into it because I see this going that much further. The last stock, or the last equity that we're going to talk about, is Nebis. Now, why are we talking about Nebis? Well, we've been talking about it all video. The AI trade is huge. NVIDIA, Palantir, Broadcom, all of these are going to be huge stocks in 2026 as AI develops even more. Data centers as well. What's great about Nebis is that it is AI assets fully on. Nebis is just a complete stockpile of what AI assets are composed of. So when we're investing into Nebis, we're investing into the core part of the AI trade. So I've been taking shares on this pretty much every drop that I've been able to. And what's great about it is that I haven't made any money yet, obviously, if you can't tell by the chart. But this stock has huge upside potential because of how much AI is growing and how much it's needed and how much we've talked about energy being diverted to AI and how much data centers need it for AI. And basically what all of these stocks do is they all kind of sum up one opinion, that finite resources are needed to make AI data centers, that the AI data centers are going to give us infrastructure that create more AI data centers. So it's just a constant cascading appeal that goes through all of these stocks that we have talked about. So all of them go hand in hand. The last group of stocks that we're going to talk about are in the index and ETF category. And we've talked about these over on the TikTok @AscentTrade team. Please go follow us over there. we've talked about the Saudi Arabian markets. Now, what is crazy about the Saudi Arabian markets coming to light? Well, on February 1st, they went live to foreign investors. What does that mean? Saudi Arabia is one of the most wealthiest countries in the world. You know, Dubai is in Saudi Arabia, and if anyone's on TikTok, they've seen the money that comes out of that space. So everyone should know that Dubai is a huge source of income and investment. What's also great about Saudi Arabia and the Middle East in its entirety is the fact that oil comes out of it so much. Oil is a huge resource that we've talked about early in the video with finite resources, and I believe that FLSA and KSA definitely have the ability to go the distance now that the Saudi Arabian markets are open to foreign investors. Sure, since the opening we've seen a downtick in price, but I think that's just a bargain, saying that we're getting some good buying pressure. As these resources become more finite, this stock will probably go higher. So of course, this is not financial advice. I am not a professional. I am simply just a guy in his basement teaching you guys how to trade, and that's all I am. But what I really want to enforce here is that these are great buying opportunities for the future and for long-term holds that can build wealth over time. If you are a long-term investor, realistically, what do you have to lose besides time and investment? These stocks are great because they have great upside potential in 2026, and I can see them strictly going the distance. I am invested in most of these stocks, if not looking for a spot to invest in most of these stocks, and I hope that all of you take this into consideration and enjoy my stock picks. Thank you for listening, and of course, stay green.